So Betsy, first off, why are you running for the House 47 seat?
Well, the overall reason I'm running for it is because I'm concerned about our freedoms. You know, in the Declaration of Independence, it talked about we are given these inalienable rights by the Creator, that's with a capital C, and they are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And frankly, I think we're losing a lot of our freedoms now. Some of it's very subtle, and then some of it's right up front. And I just feel that I'm called to stand up, and stand up for what we traditionally, and I'm talking about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and what Americans traditionally have believed and worked with. I have stands on agriculture and education and, talking points about other things. I'm concerned about other things too, but basically the real reason, overriding reason, and frankly, to me, it's above politics. I mean, we're all going to be influenced by what happens in our country, and we need to really think about whom we elect, and also people need to vote. People need to be educated. A lot of people don't understand. They don't get civics or history so much anymore in school. And so it's kind of almost an educational process, too.
This past legislative session, tax policy was rather front and center, particularly with the Senate Bill 509. What do you think the state's overriding policy should be on taxes and tax credits?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. They need to abolish the income tax. This is the state one. There was a study done by Arthur Lafler, but it's been also approved by the Show Me Institute, that they compared Tennessee and Missouri. They're almost exactly the same in many aspects, but when it comes to a state income tax, Tennessee doesn't have one, and they're doing much, much better than Missouri. We're having trouble because we are lagging behind some of the states that are nearby. So I also feel our taxes are too high in some areas, and concerned about more taxes being piled on because there's only so much money. People forget that sometimes.
How should the state approach K through 12 education?
Well, I think that, for one thing, the states and the local school boards need to come back into control. This is one of the worst things I can see that's happening in terms of education. But also, money isn't always the answer. We do need money, obviously, but we need citizens and parents, people in a community working together on a lot of this. And frankly, I get the feeling that a lot of times this isn't happening so much anymore. And when we used to do that, it made a difference. I'll give you a quick example. When we lived in the Buffalo, New York area, they bragged about our school district, which we did have an affluent area. It was an old, the community was part past farming and then part people who moved in with money. So you had an interesting combination, but they just thought their educational system was wonderful. And they had a lot of merit scholars and things like that. But when New York State graded, they turned out to be 200th in the state. So they decided they were going to spend a lot of money. Yet 10 miles down the road, there was a farming town that just didn't have the money, but the community got together and they won a national contest. So I'm not saying you don't need money, but I'm saying you need new ideas, you need working together, and a lot of cooperation. We need to get out of the box and start being creative like America traditionally has been. And I think, to be frank, that's what needs to be done.
If elected, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Well, again, this is on a state level, but a lot of times things seep down from above to the state level. I would say certainly to be careful in taxes and try to avoid spending more, that's for sure. Also, again, it goes back to personal liberties. There's been a lot of talk about, what kind of liberties do you have in farming? There's been talk about gun rights. I am a Second Amendment person, and I'm pro-life and things like that. And so I think we're looking also again at personal freedoms. We might not think of it that way, but that's really what it is.
There are two Republicans running in this primary. Why do you think voters should pick you?
Well, I think part of the reason is because I'm on a mission. And it's in the sense that, and this is really going to affect everybody. Like I said, our personal freedoms, and a lot of it is just, who's going to control who and who's going to control what. And a lot of this control is way out of whack. And we really need to have people see that, again, going back to the Declaration, the idea was freedom so that people can prosper. And that's part of the reason our country has prospered. It's not just financially, but we've had an amazing culture and history. And we're admired. It's one of the only countries I know of where people die literally to get into. That says something right there.